Well, hello, and welcome to the Coaching Business Spotlight Show. I'm your host, Kat Connect, and I'm excited to share with you the many soul driven strategies there are to help you succeed in your business and your life. And today we're going to look at impact. What is the impact that you want to have as a coach, and how do you have that impact? I know you want to have clients. You have impact on clients. Maybe you work with teams or organizations. You have a passion for helping people, or you would not be a coach. But what I want to show you today, kind of expand your thinking about your impact, because there's a much bigger impact you can have on the world. And that can also be at the heart of your marketing. So today, to help me unpack this, I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to have a conversation with Manoj. Manoj Viswanathan. I'm going to say his last name, Viswanathan. Manoj Viswanathan. He's a leadership coach and team facilitator. And this man has an impact. One of the impacts he has is with executives and leaders. He helps them to create a people first culture. He's worked with big organizations like Google and Facebook and Amazon. He has credentials. He's at the PCC level as a certified coach, and he has an MBA. So Manoj knows his stuff. He's also a delightful guy. Welcome to the show, Manoj.
Hi, Kat. It's great to see
Hi.
you.
It's so good to have you here. Now, you and I know each other through our work at the Coaches Training Institute, but I subscribed to your leadership mindset series. And that's what inspired me, actually. I mean, you're a great guy. I'm like, we could talk a lot. I'd love to unpack your brain about many things, but I got so inspired by this series and it had an impact on me. So
Thank
I
you.
thought, well, this is perfect. Like, I want to talk about impact. Here's a person I know. And yet when I read some of the things that you'd written, it was that impact beyond just here's a person I know and they're a coach and I know they're helping people. So I want to start. This is where I want to start because I loved this and I want to hear your thinking about. You have the one that first sparked my interest is called Future Proof Your Career.
Hmm.
Now, who wouldn't want that? I'm curious, before we go down into the message of it, I'm curious about your marketing mind. Like, what had you come up with that as a title?
I think what sparked it was a couple of conversations I had with fellow coaches. And we were actually looking at the impact of generative AI and what it's going to have on the coaching
Mhm.
world as well. So that sparked my thinking on, okay, as I saw the landscape, right, LinkedIn, and I talked to a number of clients, there's a lot of rush to get on board and figure out what the right so-called hard skills are to build.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, every time this happens, leaders and working professionals, especially in tech, want to dive into newer skills. But I felt like there's a missing piece, and that's what sparked the thought of, okay, what would I believe, based on what I've seen, what I've experienced, are the skills, what they call as soft skills, but I don't agree. I think they are essential skills. What are those essential skills that can help you kind of be more relevant in a fairly, honestly uncertain future?
And it's so funny when you say that because it's like that's always the case. I mean, this AI thing has like this is the latest thing that's made us feel uncertain about the future. But really, the future is always uncertain. I love what you're saying. I do because we can go, it's like we go to the problem solving and like what are the things we need to have in place? And so often those are the least important things. Mostly we're all smart enough to figure those things out. But what I love in what you did, it was surprising to me. So first of all, I loved that you had that as a title. And this is for the coaches listening to this show, watching. It's really good to have a catchy title that people can relate to. So that's what I just heard you say. Here's a tip right away. Go out and listen to what people are saying. You hear something going on in the culture and you address it. This is so important, right? We all have our own ideas and our wonderful ways that we want to help people, but we need to first listen to actually what's going on out there. And then the second thing I heard you did, and this is another tip right away, is go in, and that's when you say, well, what do I think would really help with this?
Yeah, I believe essentially leadership is all about perspectives, right? What used to trip me up in my past, because I used to be an account leader, I used to, lead teams across multiple geographies, report into executives. I always used to worry about, saying the right thing, right? I
Mhm.
had imposter syndrome. I was like, I need to get this right. And the more we fixate on that, that's what kind of trips us up. So I think thanks to CTI, I realized the power of perspective. Like, how can we look at everything not in terms of this is right and this is wrong, but just different perspectives. And so every time I feel stuck in sharing something, I'll be like, hey, this is just a perspective I'm going to share. And there might be people who might not like it, but there might be people who love it. So yeah, that's part of the thinking behind
I'm going to say golden tip number two. That is such a great tip because we do get tripped up. Oh, I'm gonna have to say the right thing and it has to sound so smart and there's all this and when people do that, when I've seen coaches, they actually present a message from there, it has a not a good impact, I'm going to say. We can feel that. We can feel the trying and the wanting to get it right and it becomes kind of stilted and dry and sometimes even pushy.
totally, totally.
Right? But when you're just like, hey, here's a thing I think is important, and I'm going to put it out here and see how it lands.
Yeah. And I see this all the time with my clients where, how do I present effectively in front of my audience? How do I persuade somebody? How do I have this difficult conversation?
Mhm.
It's always that there's some uncomfortable emotion, right? But there's kind of a fixed belief or a limiting belief of this is hard or oh my god, how am I going to do this? And as a coach, I feel that's where I add value by just helping them kind of become more self-aware of their thought processes, beliefs, and emotions, and learn to embrace some new beliefs that can help them have a little more fun. I think we live in a
Yeah.
time, Cat, there's so much of change and so much of chaos. It's fairly stressful. So that's also the kind of clients I tend to attract who are successful, but who are really exhausted, and they want a
Mm.
different kind of being because they know that they're always going to be successful.
Sure, sure. And here's where I want to look. Here's what I want to kind of the connection I want to make with what you're saying is that this works with clients, but this also works with a marketing message. I call it a marketing message. It sounds kind of dry, but you know what I'm saying. This is your series. This is a market. You're putting something out in the marketplace so that you can give your here's how I think about things. And yet it has an impact and it has an impact on bringing in the people you're talking about. But it also hasn't just has an impact in general. To me, those are two really important things that we
Hmm.
put out in the marketplace, something that we think is important. And
Yes.
that's again, that's what I got from reading your newsletter series. It's like this is an important thing to know whether, I'm ever going to be your client or not. It has a positive impact. That's what I want to kind of inject in this conversation for coaches is think about what's the impact you want to have. Put it out there. And if it's true to you, if it's authentic, and this is going to come into your 4 points that you make about this. And this is what I love. So I'm going to bring in your 4 points and I want to connect these to coaches and how they might use this in their business.
Sure.
Does that work for you?
Yeah. Kat.
Okay, great. So number one is become emotionally resilient. So tell me just a little bit about how a person becomes emotionally resilient.
I think the first step is really to become emotionally self-aware. I can tell you, I grew up in a culture where, as a boy, you're not really allowed to show a lot of emotions, right?
Mhm.
And many
I'm
people,
sure I'm sure that's true with a lot of people.
it's
Your
true. But,
culture, right? Lots of cultures. I was brought up in
I-
a culture like that too.
yeah. And as much as, I love my culture, there's also a sense of, we tend to kind of allow our thoughts to hijack our feelings. So, and sometimes that can mean distracting ourselves. I still have a
Mhm.
habit. If there's a really uncomfortable emotion, my default is to distract myself, maybe watch
Mhm.
Netflix or something, and
Sure.
not feel the feeling. And I've been drawn to outside of CPI, conscious leadership group run by Jim Deppner. And he talks about, there's a principle called feel the feeling.
And I'm curious, if we were to identify what is one advantage that gives people. So right here's the top thing. It's like,
Yeah.
bulletproof your career, or what's one thing that being emotionally resilient helps people with?
I think it just helps them show up with a lot of presence, with a lot of authenticity, and they tend to respond rather than they.
There you go. That's cool. That's great. Okay. The next one is develop an empowering mindset. Now, I believe this is a belief of mine, is that mindset is everything. Right? We can do all kinds of things. I have this in my program. I have a lesson called, a whole thing around marketing mindset, because I believe it. If you have the right mindset, then the actions that come from that are going to be positive and they're going to be effective. So I'm curious, like, what's one thing that helps people develop a good mindset?
I think having some structures in place
Mm-hmm.
uh, can have a significant impact. For example, I have a few people in my life, a coach, wife, brother, with whom I can be like, vulnerable and just share my, deepest disappointments and regrets and whatnot. And sometimes just doing that can make you
Mm,
and can help you kind of connect to what's important. That's one. The other thing I can think of is sometimes it's just stepping out of the house, going for a walk, having
mm,
you know uh, a nice song to listen to. For me, music really.
mm,
So it's also this belief of you know there's so many different perspectives to play with. The more it's just our ego that
mm.
keeps. So how do you get out of your own ego that is not working for you in that moment?
I love that. So and I'm kind of seeing these things connecting too, the four things connecting. Really, it can be really simple: music, nature, ways of getting grounded, having a support system, really, really important. And noticing that, oh, there's something driving here. If something's driving you that doesn't feel good, then you're off track. And this comes to number 3: make courage a habit. Now, we often tell, or we're told, and we tell other coaches, I do this when I train coaches, it's like, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Yeah,
because to really have an impact in this world, to put yourself out there, to make a difference, there's going to be vulnerability.
totally. And one of the things I learned, because when I went through coaching, for me, it felt so hard because I was a problem solver who wanted all the questions prepared in advance. And coaching was about
Yes.
being fully present, dancing in the moment, and and so it's really retooling the thinking to, I need to, the default is I need to know before I go. And
Mm,
it's like, I want to go before I know, by trusting that once I go, things will get figured out. It's super hard. That's what I'm trying in my business. What
yeah,
I'm telling my clients, which is anytime you are overthinking, just be spontaneous, just start, and you'll be able to access something that is already within you.
I love that. Courage is a habit. I've never thought of that before. It's just beautiful. I'm like, oh yeah, know before you, like, go before you know, because that's actually, there's something that you've just said, like, that's when we engage with people. It's actually like the opposite. If you get it all figured out and you're all that, then it's kind of, again, it's kind of stilted. There's a separation. Sometimes there's even a, like, a hierarchy. People can think, that you're better, that you think you're better than them. When you just speak from that place of the heart, it always works out. And
Totally.
I want to put this out there for the coaches working on their business. Something that you said, it's like working on your business. It can feel like I have to have this all, I have to know something. Actually, you don't have to know anything except what you care about, what matters to you, what's important, and that's where you engage from.
And it's a
And
constant reminder, Kat. It's a constant reminder because it's hard, and that's how I kind of remind myself from time to time. It's okay because all the goals that we set up, like so many videos to do, so many posts, these
that's right. That's right.
these are in a sense artificial. And the key is really to connect to our resonance and to our kind of
That's right.
emotion.
I think it's the biggest lesson, one of the biggest lessons I teach. And you just said it, and it's hard because it's so much easier to go, why don't I just make another video and I'll just do another post? And right, those things that we can do that don't take any courage at all. Right. But it is the things that take courage that matter. And here's the last one. So important. Build authentic relationships. I just think, I think this is true for anyone at any time in life, but as coaches in business, it's the foundational piece.
The foundation. It's the foundation of why we become coaches in the first place, I think, because those conversations we have within that space is something that at least I've not experienced a lot outside of it. And for me also, as a solopreneur coach looking to build a business, authentic relationships is the heart of everything. The relationships I have with my clients, the relationships I have with the support system, the relationships I have with other coaches.
Yeah.
Like, it's what really fills me up. And I think the other challenge, the reason I wrote that is also, we live in a world where, world is remote, right? It's not like you get to go and hang out for, a coffee.
Right.
It's become more kind of fragmented and there's kind of competing priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So the key is really to have heart-based, authentic relationships that can truly help us move forward, be it at work or in our personal.
And here's my experience with that. So I've been in business for 22 years, and I have relationships with people that I established 15, some of them 22 years ago, that are still, I'm going to say I still have them, right? Sometimes it's a support, somebody I'm in a relationship and they're supporting me just, as a friend. Sometimes they are literally sending me clients continually because we have built that relationship. I think it's fun. Again, I'm repeating myself, but it's so fundamental. Again, this is what coaches know how to do. This is why we are in this business. And it is the number one way to build a business, to grow a business that kind of keeps my business is soul-driven success, because I believe we want to keep the soul, we want to keep the heart in everything that we do. And authentic relationships is just a huge key that I think that people just kind of want to bypass that and think that maybe it's not that important when it's actually essential.
Oh yeah, and it also reinforces to me that I'm not alone, and that we are all together trying to have a collective impact.
That's right.
And sometimes when a coach reaches out, I tend to have a conversation and fill up his or her emotional tank, and sometimes I need that from somebody else. So
that's right.
I think we are in a heart-based business where we need to kind of fill up our emotional love tank, so to speak, so that we can be of the greatest service to people we serve.
100%. It's like there's something that one of the founders of the Coactive Training Institute, Karen Kimsey House, once said to me. She said, we are the instruments, right? So like, imagine like we're the violin, or we are the instruments of our work. So we have to keep finely tuned. We have to keep our tank filled. And we need to, we need support. We support other people. We need support. Those authentic relationships are just, they go all through our life.
Absolutely.
Now I'm going to bring in another one in this series. So again, at the end of this show, I'm going to really, and I'll just do it right now, really encourage our listeners to go to LinkedIn. I want you to connect with Manoj, and I want you to sign up for his newsletter. That's what I'm going to give you a direction to do. You can find him. We're going to, all this information, we have the copy. You can get the spelling, all of this. Sign up for his newsletter, because this series is really impactful. And sometimes we read the whole thing. One of the things, Manoj, that I love about how you write is you have a way of writing that just highlights things that have me thinking. And so this was another one that I just caught the highlight of, and it's called Redefining Success. Because again, the name of my business is Soul Driven Success, and I find so often success is misunderstood. So I am curious, like, what's the key for you in this redefining success?
I think this topic came at a fairly difficult time in my life. So there was a
Mm,
time, 2021, when a dear family member became cancer, and we were very
mm,
close. Practically, lived in the same house, supporting the in past.
mm.
So for pretty much the next 6 months to a year, I really couldn't press the accelerator in my business. There was there was the sense of, I don't know that I call it depression, but it's really a sense of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know that I want to do this. That emotional resonance of what made me thrive as a coach kind of dimmed during that phase. And I needed to give myself space to kind of just breathe and honor what's important for that time. And I had to face some difficult challenges at that time.
Yeah.
I again, I grew up in a culture where man is the provider, and you
Mm,
need to help your family. And I had to have some conversations with my wife that made me feel, that at least had me uncomfortable before the conversation. And it made me realize how much we are conditioned, each one of us, into what success is. And
hmm.
also, when you go to social media, you see all these, I
Oh,
don't know,
yeah. Yeah,
successful.
there's a whole pretense of success is what
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's just a whole,
There's a whole lot. So I realized, okay, success is something that, I need to define it for myself based on what I'm going through and based
yeah.
on what's good for me at that time.
Yep.
And that was the kind of the base. So I tend to write articles based on my own
Well,
life events and
I want to like what we call double click on that. So let's hold that, but I want to stay here. So I definitely want to click on the writing things from your own life. So, thanks for sharing that story. It's really touching. And I think most of us, if not everyone, right, we're humans. We're in business, we're coaches, but we have our own life and there are things that happen that really shake us up. And what I hear for you is that the shakeup. So I hear some of the things that you actually used your own guidance about, the courage and the resilience and really being willing to be emotional. And I actually hear that for you, like you want, like define success the way that it's actually going to be true for you. Nobody else can tell us what our success is. I
yeah,
had this, I'm going to tell a little funny story and then I want to hold on to the second part. I had an experience recently. It was also at the death of a family member, but we were at it wasn't the funeral. It was like we had a big dinner afterwards. It was the day after. It's kind of how my family does things. After that had all settled, we were all together, and I was seeing cousins I hadn't seen in years, and nobody has really. Most of the people in my family don't understand what coaching is. They haven't really got what my career is, even though I've been doing it this long. And I just kind of expect that when I go to a family gathering. But at this gathering, one of my cousins, again, I haven't seen him probably in 10 years, and he comes up to me and he says, "So, Kat, it looks like you're really successful. It looks like you've really reached a high point of success." And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean?" I've been successful in my opinion, for a really long time. But he was seeing something on social media that to him now looked like I was a success. And it just struck me like, yeah, we make so many things up that we see on social media. And so it's up to you to redefine what that success is.
totally.
Yeah. Now, there was this thing I wanted to double click on. Do you remember what it is? Because I forget. You were saying a thing and I wanted to connect it to coaches. Oh, yes, yes. Okay. It's about your personal story, like your personal life. Like, let's just talk a little bit about that. How does that work with you and what you write about and how you have an impact in the world?
I think my own experience, I got into coaching because of a personal challenges. I had imposter syndrome. I graduated from one of the best business schools in the country, but I was always stressed, both when I was studying there and afterwards when I was working with a lot of executives and C-suite folks. There's always this inner angst of, I need to prove myself. People should not find out that I'm not good enough. So there was
Hmm.
this constant lack of who I was. And that's what got me into coaching in the first place. So one of the things that I think I'm good at is I can tend to spot the patterns. I can tend to spot the cobwebs. I can tend to spot the
Mm,
limiting patterns and
mm,
stories that we tell ourselves. And so the key is really for me to, when I share what I'm going through, it's also more in service of this is not just what I'm going through. Like hundreds of you are going
Mm.
through this, and I think it makes me relatable.
Yeah.
Uh, and I also want to normalize a lot of things that we all go through.
It's just so, again, it's touching me as you speak, because this is I think I call this the vulnerable truth. When we tell the vulnerable truth about ourselves, it connects us to other people. It actually helps people. I think just as much, if not more, than here's the great way to do things. Here's the perfect thing, you can do for this. It actually gets them on a deeper level. And people tell me too, and I'm curious if you hear that. People tell me like, "Oh my gosh, Kat, like I I write my blogs, my newsletter. I talk about my mistakes a lot. I have my book, my Evolve Your Coaching Business. Like half of my book is here are things I did that didn't work out, my hard times, and the other half is all the things that went well. But again, the feedback I get a lot is people really love it, like normalizes the human experience and helps people, it gives them hope.
So, and I am, it's hard, but I'm recognizing more and more that, the future version of me is still going to be different. But the pace of change that I want to change may not
Mm.
happen at the pace that I want to. So it's more of the self-acceptance journey of certain limiting challenges that I have, and to be honest, what everyone has. And that is where the redefining success part comes in. I want to share a quick story. I took my kids to swimming, for them to learn swimming. And the truth is, I was terrible as a child. I struggled in the water. I've gone back multiple times. It remained a huge kind of fixed mindset and limiting belief. So I never ever got around to learning swimming till pretty fairly recently. So I didn't want my kids to go through. I take them to a swimming pool. And my daughter, she's petrified. Like she's really scared. And her body is like sharing. She wants to get out. And a part of me wants to just lift her. A part of me just, so I'm like, okay, don't put your head in the water. Just stay. And I just kind of just smiled at her, smiled at her, and she just took a breath, took a breath. And I wrote an article on this to say that, sometimes staying with the struggle is so important because that's what actually is even more important than right. So for me, a lot of times it's also reflection on me. Like, okay, I am projecting my fear on my kids. I'm projecting my, oh, I don't want her to grow up with the same challenges I did. So it's
Right.
not just self-awareness. And I think that's what I love about coaching, which is we get to kind of influence people to change the way they look at themselves and
Mm.
essentially change the way they look at the relationships around them and impact their relationships.
That's huge. So that's huge right there. Just that message. That's what we get to do as coaches with our clients. And that's what we get to do with coaches when we're telling people about our business, which is what you have done so brilliantly. And I love what you've shared today. It's time for us to wrap up. What is one tip you would give to coaches who are maybe they're starting their own business or struggling to, get seen and known and have their impact?
The number one tip I would give them is be kind with yourself, set reasonable goals, and celebrate the tiniest of things. So start celebrating the tiniest of things. That's, I think
Yeah.
that's what I've now been coaching for about 4 years now.
Hmm.
I'm still not, if I'm just purely looking at it from a monetary standpoint, I'm still not where I want to be. But
Hmm.
I've learned so much, I've grown so much. So I am learning to celebrate every small thing that comes. And that essentially is like oxygen for any,
Wow.
what I believe is oxygen.
Okay. I want to underline those three things. So be kind to yourself. Number one, set reasonable goals, reasonable expectations. It's business. It takes time. Everything takes time. There's nothing wrong, like, with you, however long it's taking. And this is you and everyone, all of us. And what was the third one?
Celebrate every single.
Celebrate. Yes. Celebration. Celebrate every single teeny tiny win, right? Just the thing you crossed it off your to-do list, you reached out to somebody. Yay. Yes, those are three great tips. Wow. So I want to make sure people can find you. There's going to be the copy on our website and that comes with this. Would you spell your last name so that we can make sure so your first and last name so they can go out, they can look you up, especially on LinkedIn and social media and find out
Yeah,
all your
sure.
brilliance.
I've got a pretty long name, Cat, so I'm going to
Okay.
spell it out. It's Manoj Ramanan. It's just, I'm Indian, so
That's just how it goes, right?
that's how it goes.
And anybody can contact me. I'll be happy to connect you up with Manoj. It has been a pure pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. I look
Thank you.
forward to having you back on the show again sometime soon.
Anytime.
All right. Have a great day. Okay, it is time for us to wrap up the show. Thanks for listening to this episode of Coaching Business Spotlight. I hope you've enjoyed it. For tips and notes, you can check us out on souldrivensuccess.com. We'll have all the information on the guests and upcoming shows, and you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. So thanks for coming, showing up, and talk to you next time. Bye-bye.